components that should be present in the embedded system, you need to be able to decide that. So for that reason, we are using here different kinds of elements as a core of an embedded system. Depending upon the application, you'll be using these. So when it comes for the general purpose and domain specific processors, embedded systems are going to be based on processor or controller. It can have microprocessor or it can have microcontroller. So processing device, it can be a microcontroller or a microprocessor or a digital signal processor. Again, it depends upon the application. So maximum of the embedded applications uses microprocessor or microcontroller. So digital signal processor, it comes when it comes for the specific applications like speech coding, speech recognition. So in that kind of embedded system, specific embedded applications, digital signal processors will come into picture. So these are the different kinds of processors which will enable your embedded system to work properly. So when it comes to the microprocessors, I think class we have seen the Intel family of microprocessors. What were the different family of microprocessors were available? 4004, 8008. Then after that 16, 32, 64-bit microprocessors also available. And the companies which are going to produce or manufacture all these microprocessors. So now when it comes to the general purpose processors versus application specific processor, so general purpose processor will be always used for general computing task, like your laptop, computers, all these will be considered as general purpose processors. So it will contain your arithmetic logic unit, control unit, all these things. When it comes to the application specific instruction processors, they are designed for specific application domain, application specific processor. So like network processing, automotive, telecom, media applications, digital signal processing, all these things will come under specific application specific domain. So as it fills the this gap between the general purpose processor and the application specific instruction circuits. So microcontrollers like Atmel, automotive AVR, that is automatic voltage regulators, are examples of application specific integrated processor. So based on that, you're going to design the different types of processors. Then when it comes to the microcontroller, already you are aware, you are using a microcontroller, LPC2148. It's an integrated chip which contains CPU. Everything will be present on the chip: scratch pad, RAM, special general purpose register arrays, on chip ROM for program storage. Everything will be available on one single chip, which we call it as microcontroller. So microcontrollers contains all functional blocks for working, independent working. So TMS 1000 is a microcontroller, world's first microcontroller. And again, these microcontrollers are going to use the instruction set. It can be either RISC or CISC. So RISC means reduced instruction set. CISC means complex instruction set. So microcontrollers are designed for, again, either general purpose application requirements or domain specific application requirement. So we have 8051 as one of the microcontroller is an example for general purpose microcontroller. So automotive AVR, so automatic voltage regulator, is an example for domain specific. It is used for voltage regulation. So that is domain specific microcontroller. So again here we have the difference between microprocessor and microcontroller. See these differences, many topics we here in this chapter we are finding this kind of tables, difference between that, this, like that. So these are all important questions which you may expect in your exam. So in the third module, if they ask this, you have to write this answer. In the first module, whatever it's given in the first module notes, you need to write the answer for that. So again, microprocessor and microcontroller. So you know the difference already. Microprocessor is a chip representing CPU, which is capable of performing arithmetic logic operations based on predefined instructions. So when it comes to the microcontroller, it is a highly integrated chip which contains CPU, scratch pad, RAM, special and general purpose registers, on-chip ROM, flash memory for program storage, timer, interrupt control units, and dedicated IO ports. Everything together, combined together, integrated together, you are going to have a chip kind of thing. So that is called as microcontroller. When it comes to the microprocessor, it is a dependent unit. So it requires combination of other chips like timers. It requires the combination of other chips like timers, program and data memory chips, interrupt controllers, etc. for functioning. That means external things. So on the chip, all these things may not be available. You have to be dependent on all these external things or devices which need to be connected to the microprocessor. But microcontroller is a self-contained unit. Everything will be available on the chip itself. So it does not require any external interrupt controller. So your UART, timer, all interfaces for the functioning is available on the chip itself. So you have ADC, DAC, everything will be available on the chip. So most of the time, general purpose in design and operation, microprocessors are used for the design of general purpose operation. But here microcontroller mostly application oriented or domain specific. Microcontrollers are going to be used for domain specific applications. And when it comes to the microprocessor, it does not contain a built-in IO port. So you don't have a built-in IO port. So to connect to the external interfaces, functionality need to be implemented with the help of external programmable peripheral interface. So your microprocessor, for example, 8086 is a microprocessor. So for that microprocessor, see, mute your mics. Please mute your mics. So I'm getting disturbance. Is it okay now? So here in the microprocessor, for example, 8086 is a microprocessor. So whenever you want to program 8086 with the instructions, whatever available instructions are there with the 8086, it is easy to program. But when you want to interface any devices outside the microprocessor chip, there is no direct IO port connected for that interfacing devices. So you need to have a mediator kind of thing, what we call as interface chip or peripheral interface chip like 8255. So an extra peripheral interface chip you have to use to connect your devices outside the microprocessor to the 8086 microprocessor. So in the last semester, last year and all, we used to do programming of this kind, 8086 connected with 8255 interface to get the functionality of the ports and the external devices connected. As you have seen now, stepper motors, all those things, everything comes inside the board. But here in the 8086, you need to have an extra interface, peripheral interface chip 8255, which is going to play a mediator kind of thing between the devices and the microprocessor chip. So it does not contain a built-in IO port. But here in the microcontroller, it contains multiple built-in IO ports, which can be operated as a single 8 or 16 or 32-bit port or as individual port pins. You have seen in LPC 2148, 64 pins are available. Each pin can be used as an individual pin, or it can have multiple functionalities also. So microprocessors, when it comes to that, it is targeted for high-end market, so where performance is very important. A microcontroller, it is targeted for embedded market, where performance is not so critical. So here in the microprocessor, you have limited power saving options compared to microcontroller. So that will not concentrate on the power saving options, but here in the microcontroller, it includes lot of power saving features because your microcontrollers are going to be used in your embedded environment. So in the embedded environment or embedded applications, power saving is the one concept we are going to look into for. So next kind of processor available is digital signal processor. So this digital signal processor is a very specific kind of processor which will be used for communication like voice communication, video communication, or audio communication, speech recognition, in that digital kind of applications. So you are going to make use of this digital signal processors, a very powerful processor which comes with 8, 16 or 32-bit microprocessors designed specifically to meet the computational demands and power constraints of today's embedded devices, audio, video, and communication applications. So these digital signal processors are more faster, 2 to 3 times faster than your general purpose microprocessors, because this will be used in your signal processing application, real-time signal processing applications. So that is the reason we call this digital signal processor is a very specific application processor, and it can be viewed as a microchip designed for high performing and speed computational activities are the applications. In that we are going to make use of this DSP or digital signal processors. Again, that also has program memory which is used for storing the programs, data memory. Again, it is stored for using It is used for storing temporary variables, and computational engine which performs the signal processing task in accordance with the stored program memory. Whatever the instructions are available, based on that signal processing will be done. So it also has IO unit, which acts as an interface between the outside world and the DSP. So it is going to be responsible for capturing the signals from the outside world, and that is going to be processed and delivered and processed signals will be delivered to the outside world. And other than this, you will be having RISC or CISC processors or controllers. So that already you know what is RISC and CISC. RISC means reduced instruction set computing. CISC means complex instruction set computing. So from the definition itself, you are going to have a clear picture what is RISC and CISC. So in the RISC, you will be having a reduced instruction, very less number of instruction set. Again, the same differences are being explained here, RISC and CISC. So lesser number of instructions and greater number of instructions in CISC. And in RISC, you have instruction pipelining, which increases the execution speed, but CISC will not support instruction pipelining feature. And RISC, it has orthogonal instruction set, means the instructions which are going to be performed only on registers. You can have the instruction set which can be performed on maximum on registers. So in the CISC, you have non-orthogonal register instruction sets. And then in the RISC, operations are performed on registers only. You would have seen while writing the programs, maximum operations are going to be done only on the registers whenever it is required. So we perform the memory operations using the load and store instructions. Otherwise, all the operations are going to be performed using the registers, because when you use this load and store instructions, so you should have the memory access, fetch, and then write, read, all these operations will be done. So it will take more time for execution. So here in the CISC, operations are performed on registers or memory depending upon the instructions. So when it comes to the RISC, a large number of registers are available, but here in the CISC, limited number of general purpose registers are available. So programmer needs to write more code to execute a task since the instructions are simple ones. So here instructions are like macros. In the C language, you write macros like that. You'll be having the instructions in the CISC. So here in the RISC, you'll be having single fixed length instructions, but in the CISC, you'll be having variable length instructions. So here RISC uses less silicon usage and pin count, but there more silicon usage. So RISC make use of Harvard architecture. CISC, it can be Harvard or Van Neumann. So in the last class only we discussed what is the difference between Harvard and Van Neumann. So Harvard and Van Neumann refers to the processor architecture design. So how the processor's architecture design is available. Based on that, there are two representations or two architecture designs which comes for the processor. One is Harvard and the other one is Van Neumann. So whichever the processors or controllers which are based on Van Neumann architecture, what it does is it is going to share a single common bus for fetching both instructions and data. So why? Because in the Van Neumann architecture, both your program and data will reside in the same memory. You will be having a common memory place where you will be able to store your data as well as the instructions program. So both will be stored in the common memory area. So you will be having single common bus to fetch either the instruction or the data from the memory. So program instructions and data are stored in the common main memory in Van Neumann architecture. So that is the reason it is going to fetch instructions using a single common bus. So it slows down the operation of that particular controller or microprocessor, because whenever you are using single common bus for fetching an instruction, at the same time you cannot fetch the data. So for that reason you need to wait. Once it finishes, then only you have to go for the next operation or fetch operation. So microprocessors are the controllers which are based on Harvard architecture is different. So in what way it is different means it will be having separate data bus and instruction bus. That means you will be able to find two separate memory place or area. You can see the diagram. First one is a Van Neumann architecture. Second one is a Harvard architecture. In the first one, you have one single program memory where you are going to store both data as well as the instructions. But in this Harvard architecture, your data memory is separate and your program memory is separate. So simultaneously or parallelly, by using two separate bus, one for data and one for instruction, you are allowed to fetch or get the details, that is data from the data memory and instructions from the instruction or program memory on both the buses. So which increases the speed. So you will be able to increase the speed. And the data memory and code memory buses will allow one instruction to execute while the next instruction is fetched. So you can have the pipelining concept also here. One instruction is fetched, then it will go to the code, and again immediately the next instruction can be fetched. So that is how you'll be able to manage both the data as well as the program or instructions properly when you use the Harvard architecture in the processor. So there will be a separate memory and data which will be available. This is the difference between Harvard and Van Neumann architecture. So this is also one of the important question you may expect in the exam. So explain or differentiate between the Harvard and Van Neumann architecture or processor architecture. So with the diagram, you have to neatly explain what exactly these two architectures tell about. And you have a small table also here. So separate bus for instruction and data fetching in Harvard architecture. So in Van Neumann, you have a single shared for instruction and data fetching. Single bus is shared. So Harvard, it is easier to pipeline. So high performance can be achieved. So you have high performance in Harvard. So here low performance compared to Harvard architecture. So here no memory alignment problem. So why in the Harvard architecture memory alignment problem will not come means you have a separate memory area to store your data and you have a separate memory area to store your program. But here in Van Neumann architecture, you will be able to find this memory alignment problems like whenever you are storing a big array. So it takes more memory space will be used for storing a very big or large array. So that time your instructions and your data may get overlapped. So here in the Van Neumann architecture, self-modifying codes, it allows self-modifying codes. That means it has to align, the memory alignment need to be done properly. Otherwise, your data and instructions will get merged in the memory. So here in the sense, data memory and program memory are stored physically in different locations. So no chance of accidental computation program, corruption program memory. So there's no chance of corrupting the program memory in the Harvard architecture because both data and program or instructions will reside in a different place. But here in Van Neumann architecture, since both will reside in the same place, so there are chances of accidental corruption which may happen in the program memory. So that is the difference between Van Neumann and Harvard architecture. So that is one question you may expect. So same way, another thing you are going to use in the microprocessor or microcontroller is representing your data. So how you are going to represent or store your data in the memory. So for storing your data in the memory, either in microprocessor or microcontroller, whichever the memory they use. So in what way you are going to store your memory. For that, you will be using endian method. So one is big endian, the other one is little endian. So processors or the controllers are going to specify so which method or technique they are going to use for storing their data or instructions, whether it is a big endian method or little endian method. So now what endian or endianness specifies is the order in which the data is stored in the memory by the processor operations in a multi-byte system. So because you have one word represented here as 32 bits. So 32-bit means 4 bytes will be available in one word, but always your memory is byte accessible. We use the word byte accessible. At a time, you will be able to access byte by byte, you will be able to access. So there are 4 bytes in one word, one memory location, and each byte where exactly in which address it resides. So that is going to be explained with a technique called as endian. So it can be either big endian or little endian. So what is the meaning of big endian means higher order of data byte at the higher memory and a lower order of byte at the location just below the higher memory. So two ways. So you can place higher order of data byte at the higher memory and lower order of the byte at just below that higher memories. Second option is lower order of data byte at the higher memory, and then higher order of data byte at the location just below the higher memory. So we'll see the examples. You will understand here. This is one method or technique, little endian. So what is the meaning of this little endian means? So lower order byte, which is the lower order byte means byte 0, byte 1, byte 2, byte 3. So byte 0 is at the LSB side, byte 3 is at the MSB side, you should assume. So there are 4 bytes means there is totally 32 bits. So each byte is of 8 bits. So byte 0 is the rightmost, that means LSB side byte. Byte 3 is the MSB byte side, leftmost. So byte 0 where it will reside means in the address 20,000, that means 20000, that is the lower address. Then 1 is the next higher address. So lower order byte of the data is stored in memory at the lowest address, and the higher order byte at the highest address. So byte 0 is stored in 20,000, byte 1, 1, byte 2, 20002, byte 3 in 20003. So when we executed the software program, there also I showed how the memory, the values have been stored. So this is little endian. Just the reverse of this is big endian. So in big endian, what is done? So byte 0 is stored in higher order memory. So that is LSB byte is stored in the highest memory address, and MSB bit value byte 3 is stored in the lower memory address. So in the reverse order. So big endian operation is in the reverse order. You have stored the values in the reverse order. So this is the 2 types of endian techniques a processor can use. So anyone, it can use either big endian or little endian. It is going to specify, so in the architecture, which one it is going to use. So this is also one of the important question you may expect, differentiate between big endian and little endian. So in the next part, we are going to see the example how the load and store operations and instruction pipelining. Already you know all these concepts. So load and store architecture means so for accessing the memory, you'll be using special instructions for load as well as store. For accessing the memory, data from the memory, and storing the data back to the memory. And instruction pipelining is also one of the concept that will be incorporated in your embedded systems. So RISC processor instruction set is orthogonal, meaning it operates on the register. So the access related operations which are performed on the specific instructions like using load and store. So if the operand or the data is available or present in the memory locations, so to load that contents from the memory to the register, you have to use load instructions. So same way, you want to store the result from the register back to the memory location. So then again, you require a store instruction. So that is what called as the concept of load and store architecture. So that has been explained using an example here. So you have a diagram here. So pipelining as well as the load and store architecture. So what is happening here is you have a memory, and you have registers, you have ALU. So there are some instructions written on the right side. So instruction 1 is load R1 comma X. The meaning of that is X is a memory location. In that X memory location, some value is present. Load that value to the register R1. So you can see here X is a memory location. So 00 is present in that memory location. There's an arrow towards the register R1. So that means that value which is present in the X memory location should be copied to register R1 using the load instruction. Why we have to use load instruction means you are accessing the data from the memory. So when you are accessing the data from the memory, load instruction is used. So same way, second instruction, load R2 comma Y. So Y is also a memory location. There is also some value present. So that value you want to load into register R2. So you are writing the instruction load R2 comma Y. So after loading the values to register R1 and R2, so you are performing an operation there, add R3 comma R1 comma R2. So you are adding the content of R1 and R2, sending it into ALU. So from the ALU, the result will come back and it will be stored in the register R3. So content of R1 and content of R2 sent to ALU. After that, ALU performs the addition operation. The result will be sent back to R3. So in R3, the result is stored. So finally, what you want to do is that R3 register, which has the result. So you want to send that result back to memory only. So there is one more memory location called as Z. So in that Z, you want to store the result back. So you have written an instruction, store R3 comma Z. That means whatever the content present in R3 should be copied to the memory location Z. So this is one simple example they have explained to show you how load and store instructions are helpful in accessing the memory location. So whenever you want to access memory location for the data, you want to transfer the content from memory to register or from register to memory. Both the ways you have to use either load instruction or store instruction. So that is a concept they have explained here with the diagram. And this is the explanation you have to write. So that is your fetch and code, decode sequence. So that is explained in the later diagram. So with respect to pipelining, so this diagram is with respect to your load and store. Two concepts here we are discussing. One is load and store. The other one is pipelining. So in the pipelining operation, what happens? You'll be using fetch, decode, execute. These are the stages you are going to use. So that is shown in this particular diagram. So PC is your program counter. Always it is going to hold the instruction that is being executed. So in the machine cycle 1, so you are fetching PC, that means program counters. That means that address in PC, what address it has, that instruction you are fetching. So when you are fetching that instruction, what happens to the previous instruction? So previous instruction would have already gone to the execute state. So that is being shown here. So when the current instruction is in the fetch state, previous instruction to that fetch state will be in the execute state. So that is the reason it is indicated with PC minus 1. So when it goes to the next machine cycle, so next instruction will be fetched. PC plus 1 instruction will be fetched. So this instruction PC in the previous fetch, what was the instruction fetched? That will go to execute state. So in the next machine cycle, next instruction PC plus 2 instruction will be fetched. PC plus 1 instruction will be executed, and the next previous instruction will go to decode. So this is the stages, single stage pipelining concept, which is shown using the diagram. So in each clock pulse or clock cycle or machine cycle, how the fetch operation and execute operations are going to happen. So these are the two important concepts which we discussed now. So one is the endian, big endian and little endian. Before that we discussed Van Neumann and Harvard architecture. So after that we discussed load and store operation, how it will be performed in the microprocessor or microcontroller, and with the diagram, with an example you have to explain by writing the instructions. And the fourth concept we discussed is pipelining, stages in the pipelining architecture. So what are the different stages available in the pipelining architecture? So that we discussed in the next part. So next comes application specific integrated circuit. So what is this application specific integrated circuit? Means ASIC which are designed to perform specific application. So it is used as a replacement for general purpose processor. It is going to be used for integrating many functional units into a single chip. So you will be having a single chip on which all the functionalities will be available. So most of the ASIC, that means chips designed for some specific applications, are proprietary product. Proprietary product means, so they are going to own that particular chip. So because it's application specific, it is not general purpose. So for that particular application only, you're going to make use of that particular chip. So that is the reason it is a proprietary product. So it consumes small area in entire chip as an ASIC. It can be prefabricated with libraries which can be reused. So fabrication of ASICs requires non-refundable investment. That means this investment, non-refundable kind of investment, we call it as NRE, that is non-recurring engineering cost. So that is the third party, its application circuit is made available in the market. So It is called as application specific standard product, ASSP. It's a standard product marketed to multiple customers just as a general purpose product. So simple ASICs are proprietary products, and the developers of such chips will not reveal the design. So they are not going to reveal the design part of that particular kind of chips. So few of the chips which they design and send it to the market, so the design of that particular chip will be revealed. But for some specific applications, whatever the chips they have used, so in some situations, they are not going to reveal the design process, how the chip is being designed. So they'll be using PLDs in the design process also, that is programmable logic devices. So this we have seen in the last semester only when we discussed ADE, PLDs, PLA, PAL, all those things. So logic devices which provide specific function, which includes device to device interfacing, data communication or signal processing, etc. So logic devices, it can be classified as fixed and programmable. So we had seen in the last semester, there can be a fixed PLDs or programmable PLDs. How the programmable PLDs are going to be designed means, you'll be having a matrix kind of thing with rows and columns. There will be fuses. So using that fuses, when you burn that fuses, you will be able to program that. So programmable logic devices, so which comes under CPLDs and FPGA. So FPGA means field programmable gate arrays. Field programmable gate arrays. CPLD means complex programmable logic devices. So these are the two kinds of PLD devices which are available. So what are the advantages of using this PLDs means, it offers customers much more flexibility during the design cycle. So because the user is allowed to design, perform programming or fuse the slots whichever is required for himself. So PLDs will not require any long lead times for prototypes, does not require customers to pay large NRE, non-recurring cost. So PLDs allow customer to order just as the part number they need. So PLDs can be programmed even after shipment to the customer. So when you purchase the PLDs, even the user or the customer will be allowed to program that PLDs according to the requirement, what requirement the customer has. So that is the advantages of using PLDs. So there are some more components, that is like commercial off-shelf components, we call it as cards. So cards means they are used as is, not like PLDs. PLDs can be programmed by the customers or users sometimes when it is required, but these cards or commercial off-shelf components can be used as it is. So whatever it comes from the production or the whoever has produced that particular component, so however they have given, like that only you have to use. It is being designed in such a way to provide easy integration with already existing components. So it may be developed around general purpose or domain specific application. And again, they are readily available in market. So like TCP IP plugin module, so which gives the connectivity to the module which are plugging in. So all these things will come under cards. What's the major disadvantage you are going to find with this card is that the manufacturer, the card component may be withdrawn. So sometimes if it is not working out, the manufacturer can be like he is having the rights to withdraw that particular component. So he may close that component availability. So that is the main disadvantage, and it has to be used as it is. So you will not be able to do any modifications in that. So next comes to the memory. So when we speak about the